Shabbat Shalom. Here's a dad joke. What happens when you subtract the Gregorian year from the Chinese year and then subtract the remainder from the Jewish year? You end up with the number of years that the Jews had to wait until we could eat Chinese food on Christmas Day. Yes, I know it's a bad joke, but it does make a rock-solid point that as a people, we Jews have been keeping track of the calendar for an awful long time. This week's Torah portion, Emor, is in large part devoted to exactly this behavior, calendaring. And given our current circumstances in the midst of the novel coronavirus pandemic, it seems to me that the topics of our weekly Torah portions are resonating just a little bit more strongly and perhaps even a bit more beshert. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel made the point in his deceptively short book, The Sabbath, it's a skinny little thing, that Judaism is a religion not so much of space as of time. Quote, Judaism teaches us to be attached to holiness and time, to be attached to sacred events, to learn how to consecrate sanctuaries that emerge from the magnificent stream of a year, unquote. The creation story in chapter 1 of Genesis is structured, in fact, to make just this point. God called the light day, and the darkness God called night. There was evening, and there was morning, a single day. One of the titles that we accord weekly to God in our closing hymn, in fact, is Adon Olam, the Lord of eternity, or perhaps Lord of time. For God, we are instructed, exists beyond time, while we mortal creatures are created and exist within time. The creation of the universe was not merely then an exercise in creating space, but also in the very creation of time itself, and not merely the Einsteinian cosmic space-time of eons, but also the very human time frame of sunrise and sunset, of days and nights, months and seasons, years and generations. This week's Parsha in Leviticus chapter 23 presents the most complete of the Luchei Hashanah, the annual calendars found in the Torah, beginning with the weekly observance of Shabbat, which of course defines the 7-day week. We are then given the mid-month full moon festival of Passover during the first month, itself a week-long 7-day festival. We then count ahead by 7 sets of 7 days, 7 weeks, to the festival of weeks, Shavuot, which falls on the day after, or 50 days from Passover. Then we move our schedule to the fall and the first day of the second half of the year. That's the first day of the 7th month, which we know as Rosh Hashanah, which is followed by the 10th day, Yom Kippur, and then mirroring Passover, the 7-day week-long festival of Sukkot, again at mid-month, full moon, and finally concluding with an additional day of Atzeret, which parallels Shavuot. These days are communal, not individual. They are collectively marked in a figurative and a literal sense on our common calendar. Unlike the dates of the life cycle, which are particular and unique to each individual, birthdays and weddings and deaths, Shabbat and the 7 Yom Tovim dates are a communal exercise in what I'll call the virtue of calendaring, affirming and planning for the future. A calendar, then, is an exercise in hopefulness. Simply put, we need dates set in the future to which we can look forward. In this sense, the common phrase looking forward is a beautiful and intentional double entendre. To look ahead, but also to look with hope and positive anticipation. Both are the meanings of looking forward. This is one of Rabbi Heschel's points about valuing time. Quote, "To gain control of the world of space is certainly one of our human tasks, but the danger begins when in gaining power in the realm of space, that we forfeit all aspirations in the realm of time. For there is a realm of time where the goal is not to have, but to be, not to own, but to give, not to control, but to share, not to subdue, but to be in accord. Life goes wrong," Rabbi Heschel writes, "when the control of space, the acquisition of things of space, becomes our sole concern, our sole focus, our only hope." Calendaring, I would argue, is our human effort to exercise control, or at least influence, over the vast raging current that is time. Calendaring is the manifestation of our human impulse to wrest control of the cosmos and turn it, however modestly, a few degrees toward our human endeavors and needs. In the counting of days and weeks, months and seasons, years and generations, jubilees, and even centuries, we are affirming that our days count, that our efforts and our experiences count, that our lives count, that they matter and have meaning. Counting future time, marking the calendar, is also a demonstration of our need and effort to connect, not only with one another, but also to connect with God. As Heschel writes, "For where shall the likeness of God be found? There is no quality that space has in common with the essence of God. There is not enough freedom on the top of the mountain. There is not enough glory in the silence of the sea. And yet the likeness of God can be found in time, which is eternity in disguise." We connect with God, and God connects with us, Heschel argues, not through place, but through time. We, temporal human beings, experience the eternal God via the snapshots of historical encounters in time. Calendars are our mortal tools by which we experience the world and the divine all around us, looking forward and looking back. Calendars chart our encounter, our departure, but also our return. Calendars are roadmaps, not in space, but in time. And as much as we may, on occasion, take to the road with no particular destination in mind, we are now living in a time when journeying without a roadmap, without a calendar, is not merely foolhardy, it's dangerous. To calendar our future, however hard it is to see and know, is a necessary exercise in fighting despair, in keeping hope alive, and keeping us safe and healthy. So, Let us, like the Kohanim of this week's portion, mark the days and weeks to come, the months and seasons that we shall traverse together, recognizing that there are dates ahead that will call upon us to celebrate, that the passage of time will eventually bring us together again, and that we shall observe both sacred gatherings and secular celebrations. And let us remember that as we look forward with anticipation to better and brighter days, that we may yet look back over these darker and daunting times and discover that even now, a divine presence is holding us together and offering us comfort. Teach us, O God, to count our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Shabbat Shalom. As always, I feel privileged to share my thoughts and reflections from the Bima, and I invite your reactions, critiques, criticisms, input, salutations. Please send me an email or a note, of course, after Shabbat, and I will endeavor to respond thoughtfully as soon as I am able. I have said I keep getting a couple of notes each week, and I really appreciate to know that people are listening. One member mentioned that they prep dinner throughout the service, and they sit down just in time to eat together and listen to the sermon. That's great as well. So please, I appreciate you welcoming me into your household, and if you have a thought or a response or reaction, feedback, please do share it with me. I'm desirous of hearing from you.